Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our webinar today, Digital Advertising, Ask Us Anything. Excited to have you guys all here. We've got a ton of questions, so we're really excited to answer all of these. Today we have, one moment. I'm going to share my screen, 1 second. I think we're good to go. So today we have the digital advertising team here. I'm Haley, the VP of Digital Strategy here at Converge, and we have Gina, Michelle, and John, all digital strategists here at Converge as well.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. A little bit about Converge, if you aren't familiar. We are a higher ed agency focused exclusively on digital advertising and digital strategy. So besides digital advertising, which we'll talk about today, we do a lot of inbound marketing projects, website design, content strategy, search engine optimization, and Google Analytics. We have worked with a variety of clients, public institutions, private, traditional, non-traditional, and a wide range of programs. For today's agenda, we're just here to answer your questions, and that's it. So we have a lot of questions that we've prepped for that we got early on, and we've gotten a lot of questions in the last few days that we'll make sure to cover at the end. So feel free to submit questions as we go along, and we'll also get to those at the end as well. So looking at our first question, and this is a question we got a lot of variety of questions kind of relating to this. So how does digital advertising compare to traditional marketing?
So to kind of start off, maybe your institution is looking at completely making the transition from traditional marketing to digital advertising, or looking to kind of supplement the two. So starting off with digital advertising, you're able to get data in real time, which allows you to make smarter marketing decisions. And immediately with that data, you can edit campaign budgets, targeting options, and ad copy based on what's performing the best. This is a benefit over traditional marketing in that it takes longer to see the results of those efforts and make those changes. Another way they stack up against each other is that with digital advertising, we're able to customize our target audiences to be your institution's ideal student based on interests that they might have, or target based on keywords of pages that they're online looking at frequently, or various topics or interests. And we're also able to have print and digital work together in higher ed based on targeting specific schools and businesses with digital, and then also having print materials at those schools and businesses as well. And then it helps the prospective student to keep your program and school fresh in their mind.
Another question we got a lot, search versus social versus display, basically what channels help perform best in higher ed. So looking at our funnel here, this is a great way to kind of understand that digital advertising and process to enrollment. So understanding that student journey from awareness to enroll. So we see a lot of display and social advertising hitting that awareness and interest. You're targeting users based on their demographics, whether that's geography or age, and then also looking at their education level, education background, as well as their career background. Placing ads on specific websites that you know your audience is on, and then also placing ads contextually, looking at the type of content. There's also a lot of behavioral targeting users based on their engagement, different pages that they're looking at, what they're engaging with on social media are all great ways to leverage display and social. And that's when users are really learning about your program. They're a little higher up in the funnel. When you move into that consideration and intent, that's where search comes into play and a lot of the retargeting efforts. Those users are a little further in the decision-making process. They're doing research about the program. They've already been to your page, so now maybe we're retargeting them. So often you'll see that much higher lead to enrollment rates when it comes to search engine advertising and retargeting, but keep in mind that those users started more at the awareness and interest basis, so they probably most likely did see some display in social media advertising. So being really aware of that full funnel approach and the process can be great. We've had people ask us what programs work best on what channels. It really depends, but if you're launching a new program or something that's maybe a little more obscure, Display and social campaigns are really a good way to target that audience that you think would potentially be interested. So targeting users based on their background, as well as maybe placing ads relevant to content that they're reading. For programs that are, high in demand, such as maybe a project management certificate, search can be great because you know that there's an audience out there searching for it. And then kind of on the flip side, if you get to see that your programs are super competitive, search might be a little too costly. So making sure that you're marketing the right keywords, focusing on the right geography, and then really looking to leverage display and social advertising if you're aware of like who your ideal target audience is. And kind of another question there, what do I allocate where? Again, that's gonna depend on the type of program and how much awareness there is out there, but typically we like to say 20 to 40% of your budget should go to display and social tactics, 40 to 60 to search, and then 10 to 20 to retargeting. Our next question, traditional versus non-traditional students, what channels work best? So for actually both of these audiences, traditional and non-traditional, Facebook and Google AdWords search both work really well for these audiences. There are always people of all ages searching on Google every day, and Facebook has a wide range of users, making it beneficial for both of these audiences. And on Facebook, targeting option for non-traditional, we might be able to target them by age, their employer, a specific school they attended, or the industry that they currently work in. And then for traditional students, being able to target them again by their age, if they're in high school, and maybe some interests that they have that relate to your program. Then looking a little bit more to the non-traditional side, LinkedIn is really great just due to the older demographic that we see really utilizing this platform. And LinkedIn is especially successful when targeting programs related to business and professional. As you see, we have the accounting program and the EMBA program. And looking at the traditional undergrad audience, Twitter and Instagram are what we see perform the best just due to kind of the younger demographic on each of these platforms, and being able to target on Twitter by other handles that these users are following, knowing that the content that we are going to be showing them about your particular school or program is already related to what they like to see. And Instagram being able to target them again based on their interests, their age level, maybe whether they're in high school or not. Social media channels, what are the popularity and the trends there?
Yeah, so this question will actually touch on what Gina just covered. We'll provide a little bit more depth about how each channel is suited towards those non-traditional and traditional audiences we just touched on. So first, taking a look at Facebook, 87% of adults ages 18 to 29 use Facebook. So it absolutely remains the dominant social media platform in terms of usage. If you really think about that, 9 of 10 of your potential students are on Facebook. It really just remains a question of how do you find them. You see here also the majority of high school and college educated individuals are using Facebook currently. So further validating that many of your potential students are on the platform right now. Kind of a recent trend, so mobile usage on Facebook increased 23% from 2014 to 2015. So pretty drastic trend there. So really the need to use messaging that resonates with potential students on their mobile Facebook feed is becoming the norm. Taking a look at Twitter, it's not nearly as ubiquitous as Facebook in terms of usage, but there still is a sizable portion of your target age demographic on the platform. About 37% of adults in that 18 to 29 age range use Twitter. Twitter does skew a bit younger, but there is still strong opportunity to reach both those undergraduate traditional and graduate non-traditional students on the platform. And then with Twitter, 86% of the time spent on the platform is on the mobile version. So we really can't emphasize enough how important it is to use concise messaging and powerful imagery to reach your audience on Twitter. LinkedIn is definitely an older and more professional audience. About 60% of LinkedIn users are between 30 and 54 years old. Also, half of users are college graduates. The channel is also especially geared towards those in business. We've seen a lot of success promoting MBA programs as well as business certifications like, say, a project management certificate or digital marketing certificate. The trend is also moving towards desktop usage on LinkedIn. About 3/4 of the time spent on the platform is on a desktop. Instagram became available this past fall, so it's a relatively new platform. But taking a look at the demographics on Instagram, half of users are between 18 and 29, so definitely skews a little bit younger than other channels. The platform contains an audience of over 15 million college graduates, high school grads, and current high schoolers, so definitely a strong potential to reach a variety of audiences for a number of programs. And we have seen particularly strong success when promoting undergraduate programs on Instagram. So this chart is intended to just give you a sense of audience size by platform. So this is a look at active users by platform worldwide. You see here Facebook, by far and away is the largest in terms of usage, about 1.5 billion users in the world active on Facebook. So that makes it the third largest country in the world behind China and India. It's really pretty staggering if you think about it. So again, Facebook continues to be the dominant platform on social.
Google AdWords. What are 3 basic things to know?
So we really liked this question. There's a lot to consider when you're thinking about Google AdWords, but we came up with 3 things that we think are really good to think about. The first is conversion tracking, and the importance here is that you want to know that your efforts are working, and you can't do that without data. So the way conversion tracking works is you will set this up in AdWords platform under tools, and it will generate a bit of code which you then place on a confirmation page. And after that page loads, after somebody has submitted a form or taken another action, then that data is sent to AdWords. So what you can do with that data then is you look at your ads and see what perform best. So you can see here, we see immediately that one ad is performing over the other. We're getting more leads at a lower cost per lead and a higher conversion rate. Same thing with keywords. You want to be able to look at your keywords and know what's driving the traffic that's making your ads appear. Another basic thing to keep in mind about AdWords is the different match types and how you can best utilize those. So each match type really does have a purpose, and it's important to use a combination. Broad match is the default match type there, and basically it's just going to match to a large variety of things. This is a really good way to farm out new keywords for your account and see keywords that you may not have considered for the account, as well as keeping that search volume up, particularly for brand new accounts. Broad match modified, basically you will just put a plus sign in front of a keyword in your keyword, or one of the words in your keyword. And what that does is it lets Google know that you want that term to appear in whatever queries will trigger your ad. This gives you a bit more control over than broad match, but it still gives you that volume that you won't get from phrase or exact. And then phrase match, you're using those quotation marks to tell Google that you want that entire term to appear in the search. Now, say we're bidding on the keyword Masters in Education. We would still appear for searches for Masters in Education degree or earn Masters in Education. Finally, exact match, that's going to give you the most control. It's going to have to be that exact keyword and close variants like plurals and things like that. And those are the ones that you want to bid the highest on because you know that those searches will be hyper relevant. And then the third thing I would say would be ad extensions. So the reason ad extensions are so important is that they help you monopolize the search results page and take up more real estate. So as you can see in the top here, this shows site links as well as a call extension. So in this example, you would use your site links to direct users to other pages of your site that your ad wouldn't be directing to. So here, telling them about your information sessions, taking them to class format, things like that. The call extension, of course, is just so they have an immediate look at your phone number, and when used on mobile, they can click right on that number and give you a call. Call out extensions, those
are literally calling out benefits of your program. So any value props that you think would encourage somebody to be interested in your program over your competitor. This one is using scholarships available, global experiences, the different concentrations. And then structured snippets is relatively new, but it's definitely helpful. The two that are most related to education are courses and degree programs. So as you can see here, if you're focusing on one degree, you could call out some courses. If you are focusing on your undergraduate as a whole, you could call out different degrees that are popular.
How can I simplify Google AdWords?
So this question really kind of relates to the last one, but I think when people think about AdWords, they tend to overthink it. So what I would say is to simplify it is just to change your thinking. Think of AdWords as a tool to help you reach your goals. Your goal right now, say, is lead generation. Think about how you would want to structure your account to reach that goal. If you have 2 degree programs, split them into 2 campaigns and then allocate budget to each one. Within your campaign, you have ad groups, and those ad groups are made up of keywords. Make sure that your ad groups are tightly knit themes and that they all relate to one another, and that helps you with your ad copy. If you're having trouble coming up with keywords, AdWords has a great tool called Keyword Planner, and that will help you generate it. So you can start out coming up with keywords that you would use to search for the program, and then Google helps you to know what other people have used. The next point, being consistent and relevant. Relevancy really comes in when you're thinking about how people are using Google. When you're searching for something on Google, you're wanting to find something for that. So think of it as people are wanting to find your program. So just keeping that relevancy from the keyword and then into your ad copy and then to your landing page. When you keep that consistency, you create a good relationship with the people searching for your ads. And then finally, understanding your data. AdWords has a huge plethora of reports that you can pull, and they're very helpful and really do help you to simplify it. It's just kind of knowing what metrics you want to look at and what's important to you. So for example, talking about lead generation, the metrics that are important to you would be conversions, conversion rate, and cost per conversion. So this kind of goes into another question that we had, and that was kind of asking us about the optimal amount of time to see in an account. We would like to say that, we say that 1 month before you really even want to make any changes, because AdWords is just getting to know what you've built and you're building up that presence on the search engine. But really it's 3 to 6 months before you're going to really see results and understand how your account is set up, as well as kind of start seeing those trends. And finally, ideally, we would say at least for a year, because you do want to understand how seasonality may impact your account. Overall, just ensuring that your account is up long enough that you get actionable data and can make insights from that.
How do I increase my visibility on search?
Cool. So impression share is what you want to think about when you're talking about increasing visibility. Impression share is a metric that not a lot of people think about using on AdWords, but it's definitely important. Impression share is just the impressions that you received divided by the amount that you were eligible to receive. So for example, just to put it simply, if a keyword is searched 1,000 times in a month and you appear for 500 of those searches, your impression share is 50%. So there's 2 ways that you can lose out on impression share. One of those is from rank, and one of those is from budget. Rank is really just you're being outbid by a competitor, and this could be because you have a lower quality score, or you're just not bidding high enough. And ways to improve that are just ensuring that, again, your ad copy is relevant and that your landing pages are as well. You can also try increasing bids. And then losing due to budget is basically you aren't spending enough to be able to show throughout the day. So ways that you can improve that is, of course, spending more money, but also you can look at segmenting your data. So you can pull reports where you see where you are performing best by location, as well as day of the week, hour of the day, things like that. If you're seeing that you're spending in a certain time but not converting, or in a certain location, then you can cut down on that extra spend and improve your impression share overall.
Best practices for retargeting in higher ed.
So retargeting is something that's really important in digital advertising for higher ed just because the cost per conversion is much lower. So one method that we've seen successful in higher ed as a best practice is to utilize list targeting of prospective students that have already shown interest in your school or program, and serving ads to them is an effective way to utilize this practice. And Facebook and Instagram allow you to upload email addresses to target messaging to these users based on apply now, so that because they're lower in the funnel and already familiar with your brand. Another best practice is utilizing Google Analytics, and this way we are able to target the users who are most engaged with your website. For example, the Masters of Education program visitor was on the page for 30 seconds, and then we can also segment another list with Master of Education on the website for 4 minutes, and obviously the user who is on there for 4 minutes is going to be most engaged, and because they're continuing to learn more and more. And once these lists have been built up, they can be imported into AdWords, and then being able to act on that data and being able to implement bid adjustments so that we are able to capitalize on those users who are the most interested and the most likely to convert.
Thoughts on programmatic buying?
All right, so programmatic buying is really great to find cheaper, higher volume, and it's really good for branding efforts. So programmatic really is just a different way of buying inventory. You're able to target more prospects across a variety of publishers. And essentially, if you weren't doing programmatic buying, you would be buying individual inventory with these individual publishers. Programmatic automates that and also has a lot of algorithms in place that help you make better decisions. So one type of programmatic buying is contextual. And this is essentially placing ads on sites that have content matching the theme of your ad. So the systems are able to analyze the themes of websites and then match it to the theme of your ad. This is how, for example, we could place an ad for an MBA program on New York Times or Forbes.com. Behavioral targeting is another form of programmatic buying, and this works with third-party data, which is collected and then categorized into behavioral segments. And what this does is it helps us to create a user profile that's based on browsing history or other pages that they visited. That way we know that that person is interested in that type of a program, and we can serve them ads to interested people later on.
IP address targeting and geofencing.
So IP address targeting and geofencing are other forms of programmatic ad buying. And one of the questions was asking if it's a good bet if you don't know who's viewing your ads. So the way I would answer that is IP targeting really you want to use for a very specific purpose. You want to be targeting a IP address for a reason. So in the example that you see here, we have a public policy program, and they gave us a list of companies that were known to produce valuable leads for them, or that alumni were known to work at afterwards. And we can get the list of IP addresses and then serve them those ads based on that when they're associated with that IP address. So when they're logged into that business's IP. So you can use this with businesses, college campuses, or even conference centers. Once they click on the ad, they are sent to a landing page, and then we can generate leads. Geofencing is very similar to IP targeting. This question was specifically asking if it is a good idea to target around high schools. And I would say definitely. This is a great tactic to use for undergraduates that want to target high schools in the area. And the way this works differently from IP targeting is that you are literally setting up a virtual barrier based on GPS, and it creates a geographic boundary. Now, this is for mobile devices. And so somebody has to enter that, as you can see here, like into that green circle to be eligible to receive an ad. And then when they're in that area, they must be using an app on their phone or browsing in a mobile web browser.
Industry benchmarks, cost, rate, and more.
So we received quite a few questions asking about what do we see as far as benchmarks go for higher ed, for click-through rate, conversion rate, cost per lead, all those really important metrics. So let's take a look at some of the trends that we saw in 2015. First, taking a look at AdWords search. Click-through rate ranges between about 0.5% to upwards of 2%, really depending on the type of program. But a fairly common rule of thumb is about 1%. So use that when you're really about 1%. Conversion rates, they range as well depending on program, but typically range between 4 to 6%. And cost per lead also ranges quite a bit depending on program, usually between 200 up to 500, depending on whether it's an undergraduate or graduate, might have some influence there. And cost per lead can be much less expensive for certificate programs simply due to the lesser time and financial commitment. For display, it is closer to about 0.3% on average. It is typically lower than search, but ranges also pretty drastically depending on program. We see really anything from $50 to $250. And again, cost per lead is much lower for certificate programs due to that lower commitment. With so much content on Facebook and the user not necessarily seeking out the program you're advertising, click-through rates are typically lower than search, about 0.5%. Clicks on Facebook are also much less expensive. So even with lower conversion rates, cost per lead are a pretty good value, anywhere around $30 to $60, again, depending on the type of program. Click-through rate on LinkedIn is consistently much lower than most other platforms. We see around 0.015% on average. And cost per lead is higher than Facebook due to higher cost per click. Whereas Facebook is around 50 cents to $1 for a click. LinkedIn can be upwards of $6 or $7. So cost per lead ranges quite a bit, but is about $200 on average. So this chart is intended to give you a sense of conversion rate by month. And you see here some peak conversion months being in January, April, and September, which are usually very strong recruitment months.
How do I determine my budget for digital advertising?
So this is a great question when determining, when starting out your campaigns, and each of the different platforms have their different ways to determine budget before the campaigns are launched. So for Google, we like to use the Google Keyword Planner, and this allows us to find keywords that are related to specific programs, and based on the cost per click, make a recommendation for a bid and a daily budget. The tool will then forecast the amount of clicks that can be expected during a specific day, month, or year. And then based on the forecast, we're able to adjust that bid and daily budget for optimal performance of the campaign. Social media also provides a way to determine budget before launching. So Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, these campaigns on each of these specific channels, we are shown the target audience number. And then based on that target audience number, able to enter the budget to show the potential daily reach. And the budget we choose based on the potential daily reach should allow us to be around 25 to 50% of the total audience to ensure that we're not oversaturating users every day with all of the ads.
How do I get the best bang for my buck?
All right, so our advice is that if you're working with a fairly limited budget, which would be, say, less than $500 per month, really consider running on these channels you see here to get the best bang for your buck in terms of both impressions and clicks, or in other words, visitors to your landing page. So clicks are far less expensive on platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and the Google Display Network than search engine marketing. You'll gain the most visibility for your program on these channels for really the least amount of dollars, but also keep in mind that these are higher up in the funnel, as Haley mentioned before, and kind of the higher level awareness not as much intent involved with these channels. Platform when you're working with a limited budget, but keep in mind clicks are a little bit more expensive, but it really is a great platform for generating a high volume of impressions. So if you do have the budget to run on search engine marketing, how do you ensure that you are being wise with your spend? So there are 3 actions you can take today to implement savings for your search campaigns. The first recommendation would be to be proactive and compile a list of words that you don't want triggering your ads. This could be words such as free or online if you're running an in-classroom program, and then go ahead and add those as negative keywords. Also, implementing long-tail keywords is a great strategy to save on search. These would be highly specific keywords that aren't searched very often, hence the long-tail terminology, but when they are searched, there's a very good chance for conversion. An example would be a search for, say, a part-time law degree in Chicago as opposed to just law degree. And these keywords are often far less expensive due to that lower competition. And finally, if you see yourself bleeding money on search engine marketing, try tightening your geography. Users closer to your school are always much more likely to turn into students, and that's even if it's an online program, really due to that brand recognition for the local area. So keep that in mind to tighten your geography if need be.
What type of data should I be tracking?
So this is an excellent question, and there is really an overwhelming amount of data for you to be tracking. Really, the more data you're able to process, the better. But if you're looking for a good starting point, these are some of the most important metrics that we use to determine ROI, as well as the level of engagement with your program. So for lead generation, you want to look at cost per lead, obviously. It's a very important metric, as well as conversion rate and lead to enrollment rate. These are going to be the most critical metrics for you to track, and if you track nothing else, start with these. They're going to be a very important piece to the ROI equation. Michelle touched on this earlier. You might also want to consider looking at competitive metrics, such as impression share on search, cost per click, as well as average position, and these will really give you a sense of how you stack up in terms of your competitors. And finally, engagement metrics are also really great to monitor. This would include click-through rate, which is applicable across social as well as search, landing page session duration. So once a user clicks on your ad, how much time are they spending on the landing page? Are they engaged or are they bouncing right off? And you can learn that information using Google Analytics. And then finally, social engagement, such as likes, share, comments, if you're on Twitter, retweets, all that really social engagement type of data. This will give you a sense of how compelling users find your program. Really give you a sense of if you need to adjust messaging, if you need to adjust kind of your aim. So if you really are looking for a starting place, these are great metrics to look at.
What should we be doing in Google Analytics that we aren't already? So this is a question we get asked a lot. One thing Gina touched on earlier is leveraging the audiences in Google Analytics. So you can import these directly into AdWords, as she said, but we've seen this work really well, looking at time on page, number of pages viewed, how many times they're coming back to the website. If those engagements are high, those are going to be more valuable to target rather than looking at just anyone who bounces off your landing page. We've seen great improvement in results for clients where we've been able to implement this more recently. So taking a look at this first chart here, we implemented this back a few months ago, and we saw a drastic improvement in click-through rate. Again, we're targeting ads to our remarketing list to users who are much more engaged. And then we've also seen a really good increase in our cost, we've seen a really good increase in our conversion rate, and also a decrease in our cost per lead. So something to really look into implementing right away. We've seen great results from it. Looking at the funnel to goal completion, understanding how users are acting on your website in order to perform that goal. So what this allows us to do is really understand that path users take from page to page. Besides using this for digital advertising, we've seen this be really helpful for looking at websites and kind of redesigning pages and URL structure. If you see a big drop off from one page to the next, you know that there's maybe an opportunity to improve that page to take it to the next step. And then also looking at top conversion paths. This really allows you to see path to conversion from kind of that longer period of time. So an example here, I think everyone knows or has heard that they don't think display advertising is good for lead generation. But you can see here, a lot of users start off with display advertising. So this can be helpful to proving to your higher ups that display advertising is worth it. I know this has been helpful for me to proving it's worth it. So keep this in mind. There's a lot of ways users will start off at top of the funnel, and then they may come back through a search or directly to your website to finish that goal. What are some good tools to keep track and monitor codes placed on our website?
So this is a really great question because, as we've mentioned earlier, there are lots of tags and lots of things that you want to keep track of when doing digital advertising. So the first solution I would suggest is implementing Google Tag Manager. What this does is, first of all, it's a great way to bridge that gap between your IT department and your marketing department. I'm sure we've all been in these situations where we want to place tags and IT, you know, it's hard to have that conversation sometimes and have them really understand what benefits we're gaining. So it's really a matter of coordinating everybody's goals and efforts and understanding limitations. So what this does is you have Google Tag Manager set up and you just have that one tag. That is then placed on your website and that's it. So then the marketing team can go into Google Tag Manager and place all these ads as you see here. So I've now turned these 5 tags that are in Tag Manager into one tag on the site, but we're still able to track all of these metrics. This shot below just gives you an example of how their preview mode works. And this is a really cool feature of it because even though you haven't published the Tag Manager, you can see if that tag is firing on a live web page. So you can actually make sure that everything is working properly and on the correct pages before you publish it and before making any changes to your website. Kind of going along with monitoring those codes, there are a variety of extensions you can add to your browser. And the first one here is Google Tag Assistant. This is going to cover any Google-related codes. So Google Analytics, Google Conversion, and the remarketing tag. And that just helps you to make sure that they're all on the page. And when they're green, we're good. Ghostery is another one. This really will cover any JavaScript type code. So anything that's on your page and in the source code of your page will appear in Ghostery and let you know that that's on that page. And then finally, Facebook Pixel Helper, obviously it's for Facebook, just lets you know that the pixel has been loaded successfully and each event ID. So for example, here we know the overall pixel loaded correctly, and then we also know that our lead pixel loaded correctly.
Best practices for landing pages. So I think everyone's heard the standard conversion center design, having compelling content and imagery, having short forms. So we want to touch on some additional things that we've been seeing work really well lately. So the use of numbers is big. It really breaks up your copy, and users are drawn to numbers more than they are to copy. So looking at mentioning how many programs you have, maybe outcomes percentage-wise, that 100% of your students receive financial aid, talking about 100% of your time is spent online for this program. There's a lot of different ways to leverage numbers in a way that is visually appealing on landing pages. Highlighting outcomes is a big thing. One thing that I know a lot of schools are doing is utilizing testimonials, but we know that sometimes with new programs that's hard to come by. So looking at other things such as outcomes, maybe average salary increase like you see here below, outcomes that you have from surveying maybe alumni. And then if you don't have that, maybe looking at where your alumni work. So that's a good way to give recognition. and for users to kind of trust your brand and the outcomes that they might receive from participating in your program. Another thing is ongoing A/B testing. This is something that we do for all of our clients because there's a lot of best practices out there, but not everything works best for each school or each program. One thing that we've been testing more and more is form placement, whether you should have it above the fold or if it works better as a narrative approach where it's you give all your content and then the form's at the bottom. Best practices have always said have your form at the top of the page, but we've been testing this more and more, and the results vary by client, even by program. You can see this example, we've actually had higher conversion rates for when the form was down at the bottom of the page. So in all, you should test everything out for yourself. Some other things that we like to test are headline copy, since that's the first piece of information someone's going to see, the copy or color of your call to action button, different content elements, your layout, or even imagery. We also like to monitor engagement. This is with using a tool that we have, Crazy Egg. And you can also use, if you have event tracking set up through Google Tag Manager, that's a great way to look at engagement as well. But looking at scroll patterns, seeing what users are clicking on the most are all ways to look at what are users engaging with and what are my opportunities to improve our landing page. This is a question we got a lot. What are the top digital advertising strategies right now? And what we're seeing a lot in higher ed is sponsored content as opposed to program ads. A lot of users, like we said, are higher up in the funnel and they might not be ready to make that next step to inquire about a program. So kind of advertising your brand or program in another way to kind of draw their interest in more could be a good first step. This is infographics on like industries, talking about alumni stories, what kind of your program's doing out in the world. This example of the SEEBS EMBA and how their alumni are working on some new gadgets in the technology industry, different things like that. Value-added content is a big thing. So instead of sending your users to a landing page for them to fill out their information so you can contact them, how about giving them something of value? So we've been seeing more and more schools putting on webinars on topics that their target audience is going to care about as a way to get them to kind of connect with the brand as the first touch point, or even giving them how-to guides. I think this, you can see for McGraw-Hill, some work we did, that younger audience is even more reluctant to give out their information, but this gives them a guide, 8 tips to rock your semester, as a way to kind of get them into your funnel so you can start marketing to them more. But it's a good first touch point instead of, you know, send me more information about your product. And then the use of video. We see this more and more. It's the second fastest growing medium of advertising next to mobile, so video is. So leveraging videos as a way to brand what your campus looks like, talking about student stories, talking about course highlights, different outcomes are all ways to create, are all things you should look at when creating video. We know that everyone's on social media or on YouTube looking at videos, so it's a great way to leverage that. And then we've also seen this work really well on landing pages. This is an example for a school that we work with, Winterland, or a gap year program, I should say. Adding video, we saw a dramatic increase of time on their landing page, and then also a really good uptick in conversion rates. So something to look into. So I know, what time is it? 1:44. We have about 15 minutes for questions. So we have a variety of questions that we've gotten the last few days that we'll go through, as well as the questions you guys have been submitting. So looking at kind of our first question that we have, what are some best strategies when I have a limited time and resources?
Yeah, I can take this one. So when you have limited time and resource, you know, first looking at, say, a landing page, that does take a lot of development time. You can look towards tools such as Unbounce and Lead Pages. Those landing page platforms have a lot of great templates out there. You really don't need to be a designer. You know, any average person can create a really great landing page with all those best practices Haley just touched on. So definitely check those resources out. look at the collateral that you currently have. You know, ask yourself, can you repurpose that for display, Facebook? Look to use Google's display ad builder. That can really help you save time on developing those display ads if you want to go that route. You can also think about, of course, partnering with a marketing agency if you do want to, you know, delegate those tasks, you know, outsource those tasks, especially an agency that, you know, specializes in higher education.
Like Converge Consulting, we're great with helping clients who have limited resources. So another related question we got is, what is the most efficient and fastest way to advertise on social media? This is a lot less time consuming than it would be setting up an AdWords account already, but leveraging existing content for your messaging, imagery, you don't really have to have designed ads. What Facebook or a lot of social media advertising platforms allow you to do is just to upload an image, and then it's formatted with copy below and above it with a call to action, a headline, so you don't have to do as much work there. So it's a quick and easy way to set up, so shouldn't have to spend too much time there. And just a reminder, we have a lot of questions, but feel free to enter in any more in the chat, and we'll keep answering those as well.
So here's a question. What type of call to action seems to work better on higher education sites? You know, quick contact form, click to call, click to schedule an appointment. So what really stands out as a call to action for higher education?
So I can take this one. I think that it's really going to depend on your target audience and where they're at in the funnel. Kind of going back to the funnel we presented earlier in the webinar, people who aren't having as much intent yet, you may just want kind of a learn more call to action. However, when you're remarketing, you're going to probably use something like apply now, because they've landed on your landing page, they've spent some time there, and now we know that they're a little bit more interested and ready to engage. Other things, let's see, we asked about click to call. I would say people who are clicking to call or to schedule an appointment, they're going to be more engaged and qualified, and you just want to be cautious using that, because that call to action might deter people who are further up in the funnel, so not using that, again, like in display or social media. And then Haley touched on this a bit right at the end with the landing pages. Experimenting with downloading a program brochure or creating an ebook or hosting a webinar, things like that that are a little bit less of a commitment, but they're still giving somebody value, and you're getting that value back in return.
Our next question, I noticed my digital advertising leads don't convert to students as well as my website leads. Why is this?
Yeah, so this is a really great question, and something that's really important to keep in mind when running digital advertising ads. So if you have a lot of leads, but not really a good communication follow-up process, they're not going to convert at the same rate, and they're not going to turn into students. So it's really important to keep in mind that they are not the same as a website lead. Digital advertising leads are, you know, said to still be kind of shopping around for a degree. So they're going to be less familiar with your brand and typically higher up in the funnel. So it's important to mix valuable content with phone calls, since it is that longer follow-up process, just kind of reaching them in different ways at different touch points.
And something to note here, and going back to that path to conversion, a lot of website leads do come from digital advertising. They just go to your website directly afterwards. So it's important to keep that in mind when comparing digital advertising leads to website leads. Another question we got, Yahoo, Gemini versus Google AdWords versus Bing, are any of them better at providing conversion rates in higher ed? Yahoo Gemini is definitely more content-based, that kind of promoting content out on the web. So you won't see as high of conversion rates for that typically when it comes to like program ads, but it's a way to leverage more content-based ads, getting people to sign up for webinars or downloading like an ebook. We do often see higher like click to conversion rates with Bing, but often lower conversion to enrollment. We see that typically perform better on AdWords search. So something to keep in mind there. Another question, what is the right balance between creative and strategy in the world of digital advertising? In summary, they really need to complement each other. So it's important that your designers and those people creating content work together. What we like to do is really start with personas, figure out who that target audience is. That helps us figure out how we want to target them with digital advertising. Along with that persona, you figure out what their goals are, what's holding them back from taking that next step, so you can use that in your messaging. And then that really kind of helps you figure out what do you want to talk about in your ads, what do you want to talk about in your landing pages. So those things should all work pretty seamlessly together. Another question, what do you mean by branded and non-branded keywords? Provide a graduate school example.
Yeah, so an example of a branded versus non-branded keyword for higher education, this would be something like a user searching for, UCLA MBA program versus just MBA programs in general. So really that intent to find your specific institution is there. And the thing about branded keywords, typically you'll see higher click-through rates, conversion rates. Obviously the intent to seek out your specific program is there. In addition, there's less competition for branded keywords. So you'll typically see cheaper cost per click and with that cheaper cost per lead. But one thing to keep in mind is that if you have a website that is already search engine optimized, performing really well at converting users who are seeking out your program, searching those branded keywords, you may not need to run branded keywords. So that's definitely something to investigate before implementing that strategy.
Our next question, what is the best practice for how much or too little text to include in retargeting banner ads? Would they be short and sweet with the name of the school and program, or long enough to include a call to action?
This is a great question. We would say that having the program name is good. You just want to make sure people know what the program is and really getting that awareness out there about it. Also utilizing taglines, calling out something specific about the program, whether it's the class format, something that sets your program apart, if they can customize it, things like that. And then always including a call to action, having a button that's a different color than the rest of the ad, and really asking them to take that next step, whether it's learn more, download, apply now, things like that. And then one thing to remember with banner ads is that it's really going to vary on the size of the ad. And going back to the question about how much or too little text, those mobile ads, you're not going to want to see as much text on there because people are on their phones, smaller screen, harder to read, whereas you can get away with a little more text on the desktop.
Great. Going off of that, we got a question, which display ad sizes perform best and which locations when looking at top or bottom of the page?
Yeah, so we don't necessarily see this be consistent by client regarding size or placement, but it does seem more often that it is the top of the page above that fold. And then those sizes, the 300 by 250, as well as the 720 by 90, those are the square and then the longer ads.
How do I use AdWords and other tools for SEO?
So there are a lot of really good tools out there to kind of combine AdWords to work with your SEO efforts as well. A couple of those examples are Moz, Google Keyword Planner, and SEMrush. And one thing to keep in mind when using all those different tools is so that those keywords are, within your ads on the landing page as well as on your website as well, to keep the messaging consistent and also increase your SEO that way, and having in the meta descriptions as well.
Got a question, top recommended free video editors and makers. We don't do a ton of this, but from our experience, especially with creating our own content, if we have a Mac, if you're using a Mac, QuickTime works good for screencasting videos. And I know I've used iMovie, and I like that a lot. For Windows, I've heard Windows Movie Maker is good, and then Lightworks is one that's pretty popular across the board. What else do we have? Best text messaging practices. We don't do a ton of this again, but I think it'd be great if you're promoting events. If someone registers for your event and you can do some automation with text, that's a good idea. And if you have that younger audience who just don't answer their phones, texting might be a good way to follow up with them as well. Anything else? Is multimedia or face-to-face communication more important in higher ed? How to integrate the two? So definitely, I think both are important. If you can meet with someone face-to-face, that's, I think, always going to go a much longer way. But it's a lot of people are online, so you need to make sure that you're using both. So how to integrate the two, I would say promoting on-campus events, either through your digital advertising or email campaigns, leveraging those users who have already shown interest, and then integrating the two, again, just being consistent with messaging from one to the other. Our last question is, what are the best practices to stay ahead in digital advertising?
Yeah, so this is a really great question and something that you can always consistently be doing. So I think the main recommendation is to always keep yourself educated in a variety of different ways. And this can be done through various blogs. WordStream puts out some good blogs, as well as Search Engine Land and Google. And then, of course, we have our own Converge blog, which we talk about digital advertising and then higher ed specific tactics, as well as webinars. And these can be found, again, on Google, and then also our Converge webinars as well. So, again, just keeping yourself educated in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, we typically have webinars monthly. So stay tuned for those, variety of topics relating to kind of all the different things that we do at Converge. Very informational. I think everyone always seems like to take away a good amount of information. These are just some examples of blogs, and we call our video blog Friday after class. You'll see that hashtag there. But a lot of good content, especially lately. This month was Digital Advertising Month, so if you guys are interested in hearing about anything more, definitely check out our blogs and our videos. Lastly, I don't know, there might be some people here who attended our last conference, but we will be headed to Palm Springs next February, so definitely check out our website there to learn more about that. We have a great video that talks about our last conference if you check out our website, and we'd love to have you guys all there. So with all of that, thank you so much for attending this webinar. These questions were great. We will be sending this recording out, and we'll probably do a follow-up blog kind of highlighting some main takeaways as well. So again, thanks for your time, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.